I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Allison Lasan, Dr. Stacy Barker, Catherine Sells, Michelle Akateb, Madison Lopez, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Ms. Lopez to lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us here together. I thank you that we had a safe winter break and you've brought us here to accomplish good work, Lord, for our community and for each other and for your glory. I pray that you would give us wisdom and courage and boldness as we continue to do the work that you've placed before us. And I pray a blessing and safety over all of the students, the administrators, and the staff that have come back to get to work and continue learning, Lord. I thank you so much for this team that we're working with, and I thank you for all of the good work that we're going to accomplish tonight. And it's in your heavenly name I pray. Amen.
The board will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, and 074. And the time is now 6:01 p.m. We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 6:49 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I've asked board member Ms. Lasan to share our mission and vision statement.
Our mission statement tonight is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders. Our vision statement is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Thank you. Public comments are next on the agenda, but we have no speakers tonight. We will move on to item I, discussion items, the superintendent's report. Dr. Rapp.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I'm going to ask Ms. Gall to come on up and Karen Spalding. Oh, and there's Liliana. Yes, thrilled that you made it back. All right, so one of the things that we discussed with you all when we brought the turnaround plans forward was that we would be doing a review district-wide of our bilingual program and taking a look at if we needed to bring forward any changes to the current model that we have in place. And so I'm going to turn it over to the team to present those thoughts about that this evening.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rapp, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share some follow-up information as Dr. Rapp had shared. We have been considering a lot of things around the idea of making some adjustments to our dual language programming as we have evolved and have learned a lot about what works and what we could improve upon. So with that being said, Some of those recommendations that we're bringing to you tonight include program consolidation opportunities, instructional model information, sharing with you some staffing challenges and what we would look to do to support that, and then reallocation of support from the district level that we feel like could be a positive impact on the dual language program. We're going to start with program consolidation benefits. Of course, that word consolidation sounds to some people as if there's a level of removal of a dual language program, and I just want to assure you and validate for everyone that dual language has a very positive impact in our district, and it's strong and it's healthy, and we will continue to make sure we do so, and that's part of the reason that we're here tonight, is to make sure that we continue to offer a very robust dual language program in our district. So those benefits that we've been looking at include efficient use of staff and resources, centralized support from the district. We have a great support system, but we want to talk about how we might be able to provide additional support in a more strategic way. Focused professional development for each of the program models that we're going to talk about, one-way and two-way tonight, for both the administrators and the teachers, and the efficacy of the implementation of the program requirements for each model so that it is operating true to what it's expected to be and what has the best return on investment for those programs. Liliana is going to take some of the next pieces and share with you about how bilingual education is funded and what those program model opportunities are within the state of Texas.
As you recall, the state defines bilingual education as a big umbrella for these various program models. I just want to note that in LISD, we have ESL program models on every single campus. That's the red part of the umbrella. Tonight, we're going to concentrate on the green part of the umbrella, which is the bilingual program models. We offer one-way and two-way dual immersion programs. We do not have any campuses offering either late or early exit programs. Those programs are more of a subtractive instructional approach where students is out of their home language and into English only. We are proud to offer programs that aim for biliteracy, right? You will recall that the makeup of students is what defines the different program models. In this slide, we can see that on our one-way classrooms, the blue one, right, all the students are EBs whose native language is Spanish, and they're learning English as a second language. On the second one is what we call our two-way program, which our EBs are mixed or learning alongside Spanish language learners. The state requires a minimum of 1/3 of the classroom to be made up of Spanish language learners, to be defined as a two-way classroom. Then we have our STIP programs that we offer at Higgs and Wellington, and those classrooms are full of Spanish language learners whose native language is predominantly English. And then, as we spoke earlier, we have the ESL program. In those, we have a mix of EVs whose primary language come from all around the world. It's important to annotate that in 2019, the 86th legislative session passed the law HB3, which established different funding allowance for various classroom settings. We receive a 0.1 multiplier for EV students served on an ESL program. Students in our one-way or two-way that are EVs get a multiplier of 0.15. And our Spanish language learners in our two-way classrooms receive a 0.05 multiplier as well.
So keeping all of that in mind, here's our consolidation plan. You can see in this table our current layout of programs. We have 13 programs in all, and we're proposing that we reduce that number to 11. You can see which campuses serve our one-way programs, two-way. We've got a couple of campuses that are currently in the process of transitioning from one-way to two-way. Those are campuses in which we have seen a decline in Spanish language learner participation, and so we had already previously made the decision to roll that program off and just serve the EBs at those campuses. And we continue to have our Spanish immersion program at Hicks and Wellington. So with that, at Kamey Elementary, we decided several years ago, due to low enrollment numbers, that we would actually remove the dual language program and we'd roll that off 1 year at a time to keep our commitment to any current students that were in the program. And we are down to 3rd and 5th graders only. There were so few 4th graders, those only 8 in the program this last year, that they already moved to Peters Colony. And with 5th graders being graduating at the end of this year, we propose that we go ahead and move that last 3rd grade or rising 4th grade class to Peters Colony so that that campus can go ahead and be done with the dual language program, and we can still serve the students well at Peters Colony. So with Kamey rolling off and Mill Street students being dispersed across Prairie Trail, Lakeland, and Lewisville for their participation in dual language, we can reduce by 2 campuses. Additionally, we propose that Southridge and Vickery go from two-way campuses to serving as one-way campuses. Southridge is already in that transitional stage. They only have 1st through 5th graders right now that still have some Spanish language learners in their classrooms, but there's very few students across those grade levels that are Spanish language learners, and Vickery has low numbers of Spanish language learners as well. I'll show you those numbers on the next slide, but if we moved all those, if we offered all of those families the opportunity to go to Parkway, they could still participate in a two-way dual program that's very close to where they live, and that would strengthen the two-way program at Parkway and allow Vickery and Southridge to focus on their EB student success. With those changes, we would have more one-way programs than two-way programs. We really like the idea of having a two-way program in almost every feeder pattern just to serve that program across our district. That's important to us. So we would want to do some strategic marketing to try to beef up the SLL participation in those programs. But I will say that our lowest numbers currently are at Peters Colony. There's still enough students there that we want to try and renew its health, but we would want to keep an eye on that in the coming years in case we wanted to make the decision to consider if they should transition to a one-way as well. So with that in mind, let's look at some of those numbers. Here is what that looks like across the campuses. So you can see our student totals from this year at each campus. And recalling that Liliana just mentioned the state requires a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio between Spanish language learners and EBs to be considered a two-way classroom, you can see that that's challenging in our two-way programs at this time. So we intend to do some strategic marketing where space is available and try to really beef those numbers up. But, you know, we only bring students in at the kindergarten level and we grow them through that program. So it takes a while then for numbers to catch up over the space of the whole school. You can see the numbers of students that in the SLL column for Vickery and Southridge that support what I was talking about there as well, why we propose that they might become a one-way campus instead. So those are the programmatic changes, but now I want to move into the instructional changes that we propose for those campuses. Thank you. On our two-way program campuses, where classes are made up of both EBs and SLLs, we would want to continue to offer what we have now, which is our 50-50 instructional model. Those numbers, 50-50, refer to the number of instructional minutes that are spent in each language. So all of our core content is taught in both English and in Spanish in what's called a simultaneous approach. We teach both languages at the same time, and classes rotate between English and Spanish either across days or weeks, depending on the grade level. And We propose, as I said, increasing marketing where space is available to try to maintain that healthy balance of Spanish language learners and EBs in this classroom. But additionally, we really need to increase the amount of cross-linguistic strategies that are being used in the classroom and bridging lessons that are within our curriculum, built within our curriculum to help students make that transition every time they rotate between languages so that they're really connecting what they're learning in English and what they're learning in Spanish. That's going to require some additional training and some additional curriculum work to beef up what we provide for those teachers in our two-way campuses. Now, in our one-way classrooms, where our classrooms are made up of only emergent bilingual students, we would like to move to a more robust sequential model. So instead of simultaneous teaching both English and Spanish at the same time, we would actually teach their home language of Spanish first, and then follow up later with English instruction. So we currently have that model in our pre-K and our kindergarten classrooms, but in kindergarten right now, we only teach the sequentially in literacy. We teach the first semester of literacy in Spanish before we start that rotation in the second semester. What we're proposing is that we would actually move to an 80-20 approach where the whole year in all content would be spent teaching in Spanish to get that really strong foundation of content in place, with 20% of the instructional minutes going to English instruction so that they have more intellectual Velcro in which to attach that English learning to, because their L1, their first language, is so strong. And in doing so, we would then roll that percentage up a little bit in first grade, going to a 70%, 30% model, where we'd take on a little bit more English instruction. And by second grade, we feel like our emergent bilingual students would be better prepared to handle a 50-50 simultaneous approach because they would have so much of a strong foundation in their first language. We propose that we roll out this approach in pre-K and kindergarten in the 26 and 27 school year, and that the adjusted program would roll up with those students so that they're set up for success. We could currently serve our first through fifth grade students in our current program model and just work to strengthen it by increasing those instructional strategies that I spoke of earlier and make sure that we're following program with great fidelity. Now, our staffing challenges are tricky. We have a hard time hiring bilingual teachers. They are not as plentiful as we want them to be, and we face competition with other school districts that offer competitive salaries and competitive stipends. And so with that in mind, and our program changes requiring some additional training that we would require teachers to participate in, we propose that we should consider increasing the bilingual stipend. That's currently part of Dr. Rapp's compensation plan that's going to be presented at the next board meeting, so I know that's already been on hearts and minds for a while now. And but with that, we would like to consider creating an ESL partner stipend as well. When our teachers partnered bilingual teacher with ESL partner, those people are also having to do special instructional strategies that are unique to a dual language classroom, and those teachers need to come to those same required trainings. And if there was some way to consider offering them a stipend as well, that would really help us continue to keep strong ESL partners in our dual language classroom, which is not as challenging as hiring bilingual certified teachers, but we do see turnover in our ESL partnerships. So we hope that that would be a strategy that would help there as well. And then finally, at the district level, we're looking at redefining some of the support positions that we already have in place in order to maximize service across these two models so that we can have some people that are really dedicated to the success of these models on their campuses. We're reviewing our language acquisition support role to increase, currently provide both compliance support and instructional coaching, and we'd like to strengthen that instructional coaching side of the model to give us more people to help teachers be successful. And we're analyzing our district staff needs in order to make sure that the curriculum that we have in place has enough of those strategies written into it, so our teachers are given exactly what they need to be successful in this role. With that, I will welcome any feedback you had about these program proposals, and just want to say thank you for all the support that you give us, both as a learning and teaching team, but specifically for our emergent bilingual students and our dual language program.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions? Ms. Sells?
I have just a couple, and maybe some more of a comment. I'm going to challenge you to be very creative in the marketing of these programs. We see it in other districts, and I think if you just do the same, it's going to just fall to the wayside. So just a challenge to be very creative, and I guess that'll be done through our communications team. But even if that means some outside help, maybe, just to make sure that we're not redoing what our community is already seeing in some ways. And then I'm curious about the new splits, the 80-20, 70-30, and then to the 50-50. Are those determined by lesson plan guidelines of times? And then how is that monitored to ensure for accuracy? And then how is it decided what contents are within those? And I think that was something that I wanted. So that was the other thing. And then also, and for Melissa, I would love to see comparison of stipends and salaries in area districts. So, but back to the splits, if y'all could.
Absolutely. So in our current 50-50 model, the split of teaching is taught by rotation. So all content being taught in Spanish for a certain amount of time, and then all content taught in English for a certain amount of time. If we move forward with these proposals, what we'd like to put in front of principals and teachers to get their feedback on, so the details of this are still very much in draft form, but we would like to propose that we are a little more specific about which contents are taught in English and in Spanish, and that would actually help some of our teachers become content experts in that role. So we could move to a model where that 50-50 time is split by instructional minutes, but does not necessarily teach all content in both languages every day. So, for example, we might choose to teach math in 2nd through 5th grade only in English, and do some bridging to Spanish so that they get exposure to the Spanish language but might not be taught full math lessons in Spanish. Or we might choose to teach science in English, and then focus on literacy and social studies in Spanish. There's creative ways that we can break up the instructional minutes differently than we currently do. One benefit of that would be to simplify that rotation so that students would get some Spanish and some English every single day, and teachers would not have to change what content they are teaching depending on which rotation that they are within.
And I guess I'd like to say, good answer, because I love that. I absolutely love that. I will be curious to see the students that, if we do go into this new model, Dr. Fitzhugh, just be prepared. I would really love to see where they are in how their growth is compared to those that we only had in the 50-50 in the kindergarten stage. And just kudos to your team for looking for ways, as we always do in LASD, what's best for students. And I'm excited about this, so thank you.
I do have the quick answer to the bilingual question, because from the review that we did in August, our bilingual stipends were under the market. We had 15 reporting in our market group, where our current stipend's $3,500 and the market group stipend was $4,570. Frisco ISD is a $4,000 stipend for bilingual teachers, Plano's $5,000, Garland is $4,000, McKinney's $3,000, Irving is $4,000, and Northwest is $6,000. So we're proposing to move that stipend from $3,500 to $4,000.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I had a similar question about the split, so thank you, Ms. Sells, for bringing that up, and I'm pleased to hear your answer because SLAR and ELAR can be very different, so being able to have teachers be content experts, I think that'll also help with assessment decisions, right? If you were entirely taught in Spanish for SLAR, then you should take the Spanish STAR test. If you're entirely taught in Spanish for math, then you should take the Spanish math test, right? So I think that will make some ease of use in terms of the assessment decisions. My question is, what happens, both funding and compliance-wise, if we don't hit that 1/3 SLL mark?
So we continue to market our campuses as one-way or two-way regardless. Like, that's who's eligible to attend. In some of our two-way campuses where we have fewer SLL students, there might be 2 classrooms, and we ask the principals to group the Spanish language learners together so that they have at least one classroom that meets that two-way model, rather than splitting the students up where there might only be 3 students in each classroom, right? So the school, because our instructional model is, they use the same curriculum, they're learning the same lessons, that part is still an equitable teaching experience. But it groups them in a way that allows us to, for PEIMS coding, actually call that a two-way campus, a two-way classroom. So we actually have to code each classroom as one-way or two-way in order to meet the letter of the law to the state. Now, funding-wise, we get that multiplier for our emergent bilingual students, whether they're in a one-way or a two-way program, so that part's fine. The only thing we would lose then is that extra SLL funding multiplier.
Perfect. That was the answer that I thought, so thank you for clarifying.
I'm very glad with your answer because I was concerned. Because in an answer to me, you said 50-50 dual two-way is the gold standard. And it is. It is the gold standard, and in the presentation that you gave us in December, the numbers proved that out, that is the gold standard in really giving students the opportunity to be truly bilingual and have mastery of 2 languages. I also know that until you master your native language, you can't adapt, and which is why we sometimes that STAR score lags, if you will, a little bit in some of our Spanish language learners especially. But my question has a little bit, and it may be more for next week. When we talk about our Spanish immersion students and the stipends, are we looking at doing the same kind of stipend for those partner teachers at Hicks and Wellington that we are at the one-way and the two-way campuses?
Yeah, we're definitely, open to whatever the feedback from the board is when it comes to those stipends. They're not right now calculated in the numbers that you see in that presentation for Monday night, but if that's desired, we can definitely go back and calculate those figures. One of the things that's interesting is the word that's coming to mind, but we're kind of competing against ourselves in the way that we offer these programs, because we have really talented bilingual teachers spread across our compliance programs and our Spanish immersion programs. And having 2 locations that compete with the bilingual schools is an interesting challenge. I'm not sure that other districts that have Spanish immersion have it in multiple locations, and it's hard as it is to find great bilingual teachers, it's hard when you create competing programs like that. But for right now, our first priority was our schools with our compliance programs, but we can definitely bring those numbers if y'all wish.
Then, has there been any consideration, because I do know that they do this at Hicks in Wellington, which I know is understand that I know that it's a completely different kind of program, but they also sometimes let students start in first grade, not just kindergarten. So
We have that opportunity already existing for the dual language programs. Typically, we would do some language testing to see if it is an appropriate placement for them to start in first grade with no experience in the Spanish language. So it's a very similar process.
And then kind of along those lines, and I'm sorry that I don't know this off the top of my head, but all of the campuses that we're going to have two-way, do they have pre-K on those campuses so that we could start that two-way discussion on those campuses? Do you understand what, because we're talking about the earlier we can get the Spanish language learners, right, and get them interested in participating in that program. And so that's just you don't have to answer that now, because that's but that is something that came to me as we are talking about the strategy and laddering of these programs.
I'll take a look at them. Parkway will be, will not, because we're obviously hosting 2 pre-K centers within the Lewisville feeder pattern. Prairie Trail, no. I'm trying to go off the top of my
Independence
head.
is a yes.
Yes, and then
Peters Colony
is
is,
So-
yeah. So just
Primarily,
the Lewisville feeder
yes.
pattern.
And if may I add, Lily Jackson, I partnered up with Ms. Bill, and we tackle every Spanish language learners, so they get offered the opportunity to continue, right, in the dual language program in another campus. So one of the things that we do usually is when we send the priority list to these kids in pre-K, to those families to continue, the choice to continue the program in, as they graduate in Lily Jackson, in another campus.
Yeah, and to Ms. Sell's point, I do think we need to get creative in letting parents know that this is available to them and what some of the benefits are. Even if you don't become a proficient Spanish speaker out of it, I mean, the benefits of just language in itself with vocabulary, et cetera, I think is, and the cultural exposure as well. I think that we have opportunities that parents may or may not know about because they're already flustered trying to get their kindergartner at the right campus and doing those right things. But I greatly appreciate the work. I appreciate the thoughtful consolidation. I appreciate the laddered approach. It is, I would note, 2 years earlier than a lot of other districts do for 50-50. They don't get to 50-50 till 5th grade. And so getting to 50-50 at 3rd grade, I think, once again, gets us back to the gold standard, which is what I think is always best for kids. So, thank you. Moving on, you're still up, Dr. Rapp. It is the school start times report.
I am. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Miller is going to come join me for this presentation. This is a follow-up to our conversation about the calendar. So just as a quick reminder, historical background on school start times there. In March of 2010, there was approval for the current order that we're in, which is elementary, high, middle. In April of 2016, start times were discussed due to transportation being triple routed. And at that time, working with the vendor that we had 30 minutes between routes, which were difficult for drivers to cover. So there was a little bit of adjustment there. And then in the 2016-17 school year, there was an additional 15 minutes added to the elementary day to have elementary, middle, and high all have a 435-minute day. Then in June 2017, an adjustment was made to the start times to increase those times again between the tiers. So the elementary day was shortened then by 5 minutes. So that it just goes to show you that when it comes to school start times, this has vacillated over the years, culminating in April 2018 was really the last time that it was readjusted to get back to having all three levels have 435 minutes. And it's varied on, as we took a trip down history lane, it's varied on when it's been voted on versus information and that kind of thing. It's just varied over the years. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Miller to do some discussion about what she's seen when she put a focus group together last year.
So if you recall, last year, prior to the calendar committee convening to develop the calendar, we had a focus group who looked at start times and the length of the school day. So during that study, we noted that the majority, and I shared the districts that we looked at, that the majority of the districts had the start time order that was elementary, then middle, then high. And also we noted that Lewisville had one of the shortest instructional times of 435 minutes. So, and you'll recall that from last year. We talked about all that whenever we looked at that. So we, in December, we sent out a survey to all parents at all levels and then staff at middle school and high school. So we have the results. The number of results that came in, over 50,000 families received the survey. We had 5,000, a little over 5,000 submit their responses, and it was across all three levels, were really good representation across. So, and then staff members, we had about 2,000 staffers we sent it out to because it was only middle school, high school, and we had around 1,300 that responded back to that survey. So the results, I put numbers so that you could see the actual count, but the percentages are a little more helpful for me to kind of see. But for parents, you have the high school was the one that was more split, just straight down half and half one day, half the other. Elementary and middle school lean more towards the supportive side, but high school was definitely split straight down the middle. And then for staff, came out exactly how we thought, where middle school was supportive and again split, middle school supportive, high school not supportive. So again, whenever we looked at it at the committee last year, it was totally split. I mean, it was like 49-51 split down the middle of. So if we were to adjust the order, the order would be the start time and end time would be as above if we kept our same instructional minutes. And then we included staff just so you could see. And we included this also whenever we did the staff survey out so that they would know, like, this means you would report at this time versus the other time.
So one of the things that we talked about with the calendar and thought it was important just to bring back up as a part of this conversation, how the state is changing, that if some of our campuses have to close early, they really want you to have enough minutes banked in order to deal with whatever that is. In the past, we've been able to submit a missed school day waiver or something of that nature when we faced situations. And so with the current calendar that was approved at a 435-minute instructional day, we have one bad weather day built into that calendar, and we're banking enough minutes for another bad weather day, which you have to be able to cover 2 bad weather days. And so that would allow an additional 180 minutes banked beyond a second bad weather day, and that's it. So if you went back in time to last spring and we had to close campuses again like we did in the city of Lewisville, where we had to close about those 13 schools, right, for the boil water notice and the water line main break, if we'd had to use those days for bad weather, then those schools would have to come back, just those schools, because they wouldn't have enough minutes banked. And I'm not for sure, as I look at the transportation team sitting over there, I'd have to get bus drivers back, I'd have to get child nutrition staff back, or we'd have to lengthen just the school day for just those schools. I'm not quite for sure, that that's really feasible, right? And then, or we could bring them back for a day after everybody else is done. So those would be our options. Yet all of them, problematic in their own way. So we've noticed, that districts, neighboring districts have added anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes as they're banking more minutes to deal with any concerns that may come up. Now, one of the things that y'all discussed quite extensively last year when we were talking about adding minutes was the constant request we get from staff to have time, more work time. Not necessarily more PL time, but more work time. And the way that we get teachers time right now in the calendar without more minutes banked is through the PL waiver days. So the PL waiver days allow us to have teachers spend time in PLC, which is a way to get their collaboration and work done, but it doesn't meet the need of just straight work time, like you often hear that they ask for. And one of the, questions that Ms. Prosnick had asked when we were going over the agenda review for the meeting was, well, what would it look like if you gave teachers a couple more days? How much would that cost us to do that if there was a couple more days on their contract somewhere? And so you see those dollar figures there. In order to do that, we'd either have to bring them back early in July. You'd have to figure out where are you putting those days, because there's really not a place in the calendar to put them. But what I think we're all wrestling with, and y'all wrestled with in your conversation last year with the calendar, is we all get the tension between enough days for instruction for students, but yet recognizing there's this tension with staff needing time to collaborate, plan, and get work done. And there's not an easy answer there, because the fewer instructional days that students go, and you think about what we just heard with bilingual programs and school improvement, that's not an easy answer either. So we recognize the heartburn that comes with this conversation.
So we worked up just a few options just to consider to put out there if you wanted to increase the work time for staff. I can say adding 2 contract days, that our calendar is so tight that, it's down to the instructional minutes. So if you were to add 2 days for staff, you would have to either come back in July, which there were 2 options for July that they did not pick, right? Remember when we had 3 choices? That you would have to do a holiday, would now have to become a work time, which though they want more work time, they're probably going to want the holiday besides the work time, right? Or come back after Memorial Day to have work. Like, it's just so tight in our calendar that there isn't a flex day to make a work time right now. So just 2 options. If you wanted to remain, our calendar next year that was approved is at 174 student learning days. If you wanted to keep that same number, if you added 10 minutes, that would give you enough instructional time that you could change. If you look at the election day on our approved calendar, it's half PL, half work. We have to do half PL because we need those instructional minutes. So you could, if you added 10 minutes on today's, then you could make that all just a work day because you now have extra minutes to count. And then you could also, the February day right now on the approved calendar is a full PL day. Because we need those instructional minutes, you could change that to half PL, half work, because you have enough minutes to cover those instructional. So that you're just changing, you're adding some time, and then you actually have some extra minutes for if the water main breaks, if something happens, you have that. So but you're keeping student learning days the same. You're adding 10 minutes to the day. If you added 10 minutes to the day and you reduce student learning by 1 day, so you're now at 173 instead of 174, you actually add 1.5 more days of work time. I changed where the October, and you have a little more of a fall break for students because you're adding a PL day in October where students would be off where they wouldn't be before, but that Friday at the end of this 9 weeks could be a full work day. And right now it's just a half. And then the November and the February are the same examples as the one before that I described. So those are just some different ways you could play around with getting more work time, but you would have to increase by 10 minutes in order to get enough time for instructional minutes. And then so then here's just the different options. If you change the order and you added 10 minutes, those are just the different examples of what the start and end times would look like to consider. So those are just possibilities we want to throw out there for y'all to consider. Whatever feedback you have and what your desire is, we could work up for January.
Yeah, we have on the agenda for January 12th, we're happy to bring something forward for approval. Based on the feedback from this evening, we'll go in the direction for Monday night.
Dr. Taylor.
I had a question on if you increase by the 10 minutes, I noticed that if you added the 2 days, there was a cost attached. Is the same cost attached if you increase by 10 minutes?
No, that's only if we.
Okay,
Yeah, the cost is only if you increase the contract
Okay.
days. If you kept the same contract but added the minutes.
the minutes, it
there's-
does not have a financial cost to the district?
No.
Okay.
Dr. Barker.
Well, going back to that discussion last year, I fought voraciously for, I don't even know how many minutes, for additional staff work time. So I wrote in all caps, add 10 minutes, give staff time. So that's going to be my preferred. I will say, I would like us to stick to the calendar days that we voted on, and we decided, I may have voted no, but we decided as a board on those 174 days. So I'd be for the first option, giving them those work times that are already sort of embedded in the calendar in a way, that then it doesn't change the student calendar at all. Am I correct in that? All right.
Do you have an opinion on start time?
Oh, well, as I put in my survey, as a parent, I do think that it makes the most sense to go elementary, middle, high. I think that's what a lot of people anticipate. It was a little strange having a middle schooler that was the latest to come home. That always felt a little weird as a parent. So I'm all for moving it to elementary, middle, high, and my daughter will be happy to, instead of getting to swim at 5, getting to swim at 6.
Anybody else want to give feedback? Ms. Sells.
I just want to agree with her. I think that we've had, ever since I've been on this board, people always question, why do we do elementary, high school, middle? And I think that with our times and our start times, I have always had heart palpitations every year with the number of students when I go by a middle school and the number of students that are outside a building because of the time it starts and because we are asking parents who are just trying to put rent money together and food on the table that you're dropping your kids off at 7:45 or 7:30 so you can get to work on time. And so I think it's been a big balance and ask for our middle school parents, and I'm looking forward to this change. I also was in Las Vegas at the PTA convention many years ago and sat through an entire afternoon presentation by a young gentleman who had done research on the fact that high schoolers perform better with the later school time. And so it was very interesting to me back then, and it's still interesting to me now. And so I am all for this change and for keeping what we voted on. So 174 with the additional 10.
Ms. Alcatab.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to look into this. I know it was a lot of work for you guys to pull this together, and the data and the research and the parent survey and then going through that. I was one who also asked for it to be done, so I really do appreciate you taking the time and really surveying our community and asking them what you think, because I definitely do agree that the elementary, middle, high. Now, my incoming middle schooler will kill me for voting in favor of that possibly, because she is so looking forward to a late start next year, and her heart is going to be broken, but for a good reason. I definitely agree that we should keep the number of minutes and the number of instructional days that we voted on. That was something that we did last year. We did it this year, and I know that was a huge discussion point. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
For 10 more minutes or not? Or?
Oh, 10 more minutes. Yeah, I definitely agree. Teachers need more time. I think they will definitely appreciate that. That is one of the biggest feedbacks we get. I know as a teacher in the classroom, I relished any amount of time I could get to make a phone call to the parents, do something that I needed to get done. That 10 minutes will be very grateful.
Ms. Lopez?
I don't have too much to add. I remember back when I was in middle school, I loved that late start time, but it was a headache like beyond anything else for my parents. So I agree, elementary, middle school, high school, I think it makes sense. We always get all those questions, so I think that that's best. And I'm all for the 10 extra minutes a day with our current calendar. Sounds great to me.
On?
Last year I didn't vote for the more minutes. This year, when we put it, the way things are changing with really kind of needing the minutes for emergency purposes, it makes a lot more sense. I don't think it's going to result in a whole lot of extra learning time, but so the 10 minutes is fine. I like that first option at 174 days because I don't want to take away another day of learning. The only thing I don't like about that one is I hate early release days, but oh well, we'll just have to suck it up that day. So, because that would be putting in an early release day.
There's not an early release day, so it'd stay the same. So for October, you get out on Thursday, students get out on Thursday. So Friday is just staff.
I'm looking at this thing where it says early release in March before spring break.
That you wouldn't have that. It's a student full day. They don't have an early release where we typically do have an early release, but they won't have an early release.
Oh, okay.
Students won't have an early release.
I think what I'm looking at is different than what's in. Anyway, okay. Okay, great.
Yes, so there's no early release for students.
Great.
Only on December before the winter break.
Okay. Then as far as the start times go, okay, I'm not crazy. Okay.
You're not crazy.
Good. Good. Okay. Anyways, and as far as the order, I'm fine with changing it. I think my parent survey, I voted to change it because, honestly, I think high schoolers are more flexible, their activities, maybe now, instead of staying an extra hour after school, they'll do an hour before school for band. I don't know. It'll be less hot. I don't know. We'll see what Mr. Jones decides to do, but, that's my thought. So, I'm fine with changing the times.
Dr. Taylor?
Yes, I agree, or ditto, as my colleague normally says, with the 174 days remaining and the extra minutes. I do like the start time. I'm fine with whatever start times because Mackenzie could be driving, so I'm fine with all of them. So now I am. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
I also didn't vote for the extra minutes last year because it was 5. And I felt that 5, to quote Dr. Bonner, was like an eyelash on a gnat. But I do think with 10 minutes, I think it gives a little more flexibility with passing time for high school. And I do think that you could certainly move in some advisory time with 10 minutes, a little bit more than with 5. I thought 5 was negligible at best. I also agree with my colleagues on 174 days, and is the calendar that we approved. And the 10 minutes would give the teachers what they've asked for, which is the work days, which I 100% agree. It is something that they've asked for and that I would like to give. And I like to see I always say I'm a great person with an idea that can cost the district a lot of money or that is illegal. So, that's why I asked, well, what if we just extended the contract to give them those 2 days? What would that look like? I won't lie, I was a little shocked at the amount of money that would put just 2 days would cost. And I think that should be an eye-opener maybe to the public of what 2 days in the district costs. Put that in, and that's, as we go to talk about compensation next month, that's just what 2 days are. We're talking, teachers are 188 days, 87 days, And, we're talking about 174 days for students. So let that soak in of what we shell out just in that staff for campuses. So I think you have your feedback and your options for next month.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. And one of the things that I'll follow up with is the open-ended responses to the survey. So we provided the percentages and numbers tonight. Dr. Fitzhugh worked up a document for you all so you can see everybody's open-ended answers as well. I appreciate everyone that took the survey and gave us feedback. I always say to people, it's so important. We need your feedback. We want your feedback, and that we read every response that we get. And so I'll turn around. I will be providing y'all that document from her after the board meeting this evening.
Thank you so much. Next up is the Student Services Report. Mr. Kosh, the transportation update.
President Prosnick, board members, and Dr. Rapp, thank you for allowing us to come for our transportation update. As we were talking, I was looking back where we've been and going back and looking at all the updates, and it's very pleasant to be where we are right now. As you'll see, this presentation's a little bit, it's not as long as others, but we had 3 weeks of things in there, but we have some improvements to share. So, busing by the numbers, this looks very familiar to what you saw last time, except for that top number, 207 routes. Last month, it was 209, so we're becoming more efficient, reducing the number of routes needed based on our capacities or our requirements to service different schools. 135 shuttles, we have the Suburbans, the White Fleets, the coaches, but once again, every day we're looking at how to be more efficient, and we're getting information from campuses as well. Hey, what about combining this route and taking this here and there? And so they provide us with feedback, we share it with the team, they look at it, see if it's doable, if it's not. We have to caution them because what looks doable at one level has a trickle effect that it's great, we get the kids off campus quicker for you, but the delivery might be longer. But we do welcome all of their requests, and so we're looking at it every day.
Dr. Rapp and board members, good evening. So as of, I'll say today, bus drivers, we have currently 190. I can say that we do have 3 future drivers that should be driving next week once they complete their evaluation this week along with dry runs to ensure they are comfortable with those routes before we put them on the road. And also I want to add we have 10 applicants that we're contacting tomorrow that have already applied with the district and they are licensed. They may need their endorsements, the passenger and school bus endorsements, but that's some hope there. Bus monitors, we're actually sitting at 67, which is good. And then office staff, we added 2 dispatchers since this report. So we're sitting at 30 staff members, and White Fleet drivers, we're sitting at 6. And the leadership openings that we have is the executive director.
Okay, I am going to go off script just for a second. I do think it's important to note, like Mr. Kosh was saying, when the campuses are reaching out and saying, hey, I've got 2 buses, I think we could combine the routes. When they're giving me that feedback, I then will turn that over either to Lisa or some of the operations managers. The transportation management is almost fully staffed, and so I think Lisa can finally kind of breathe a sigh of relief, and they have the capacity to take a look at those requests and usually get them done. Whereas,
I think one person was being stretched so thin. So it's been really nice to have the staff who have been such a huge help, and we're so happy that they're with us. Okay, so open routes, I did pull open routes and compared them from November to December. The last time I updated these numbers was the 16th of December. So they are slightly different as of today. Mill Street has one. The Colony has 2 open routes. Purnell has 8 open routes. So a little bit different from the last time I updated that. I believe right now the focus, while our focus was the Colony bus barn, now we're focusing more on Purnell. That's where we're seeing the most open routes. And then absences, the graph reflects December absences with drivers and monitors, but I kept in the November absences just so you could see they're staying consistent. Obviously Purnell has the most absences, but Purnell also has the most routes. So.
Here we go, Stop Finder. The anticipation. So the team, we were excited about today because we didn't really know what to expect. So these numbers are slightly different. So as of today, we've sent out 40,870 invites, of course, to parents to activate their accounts, and we're sitting right at about 20%. So out of that, 8270, so 8,270 parents have activated their accounts. So obviously, we didn't really know what to expect today, but the team was prepared because they've been trained on Stop Finder as current as today. And one of the major complaints that we're getting, parents didn't receive the email. Well, we sent them out 4 or 5 times as late as January 2nd, and a lot of spam emails. And then also we're seeing where some of the geo alerts, parents are not familiar with that, so I asked the team today, who's here with us, to create a video and send that out to all parents to just walk them through how to do those geo alerts, because it's pretty simple once you can, verify through those videos. So the staff today received approximately 115 calls, which was an increase before we went on break. And again, it was parents with wanting to be able to track their students' buses, and I'd say overall it was a great day.
So with Ever-Driven, we are continuing to increase. We're up now to about 77 students riding our routes, split up between majority being McKinney-Vento, still a lot of special ed, and generally it's kind of just been that same group. In fact, and today I added 6 more to routes as of 5 o'clock this afternoon. So it's continuing to grow, and it is very helpful for McKinney-Vento because it's so varied in so many different locations and districts and link that the pool would be for us to try to. In fact, we were able to release some of our White Fleet drivers helping with McKinney-Vento now to help with some of our kids that go to Denton for the regional days of school and stuff like that. So we're starting to feel the relief kind of as we add on the kids to the different routes as well. There, as far as, oops, I hit the button. Yep. That we're at, the East Zone has 25 of them, Central Zone is 27, West Zone is 6, and 19 are the kids that live in LISD bounds but go to school somewhere else.
Hello, everybody. So on the special education side, just prior to the break, we sent out communications to 68 families regarding either being on a transfer. I want to say there were 8 or 9 families who are on a transfer and receiving special ed transportation, and the remaining were just being transported to alternate locations, whether that be aunt and uncle's house, daycare, places like that. So those communications have been happening. We've been responding to parent emails and phone calls, logistical things. How are we going to work this out, and trying to help them navigate those logistics. We did find a barrier where if at some point, sometimes you will accidentally block an email address. If they had blocked LASD, they may not have received that direct communication which might be our stop finder issue as well. And so as we're becoming aware of those circumstances, we're giving those communications and then providing some additional time so those families have time to arrange the logistics for that. Our goal is to, by next month, be able to have those routes cleaned up and just trying to support families in understanding the process and standardizing our transportation practices.
Okay, so looking ahead, the GPS rollout has begun. Today, we trained 80 drivers on GPS here at the bowling center. We shuttled drivers to and from. We had 2 sessions, one starting at 9:30 and 11:30. The same will happen and repeat tomorrow. We also have training not built in, I'll talk about that, but on Saturday, because it's hard to train our drivers throughout the day because they have the middays, they have the shuttles. So we have to train them on Saturday, which moving forward next year, hopefully we can build in some work days for the drivers as well so that we don't have these challenges, because when we do have these trainings throughout the school day, it really affects the middays and the shuttles. You know, you get the calls, they're late, where are they? And it's because they're training. So the drivers today, during this training, it was about 90 minutes. They did the classroom setting, and then they were sent out to do test drives and to use those tablets for the GPS system to see how it works. And the team created a QR code, a form, for the drivers to give their input on the pros and the cons and what worked for them and what did not work. So we're still working through that. Yes, so we are.
So that is the end of it, but I do want, as December came, and now we're into January, and it was 80 degrees, at some point, we're going to have very cold weather. And we've had a few cold weather days, but I'm going to let Lisa talk about, it's not in the presentation, but just our thought process around cold weather, planning for the bus barn in those early mornings.
Okay, so Matt and I and the team met a couple months ago, and we talked about weather procedures. So with our current fleet staff that consists of 8. So we do have ice melt on hand, which is the rock salt that will be distributed throughout each bus barn. Excuse me. That's the weather. 3 staff members will be at Purnell. We have 3 that will attend to Mill Street, and then we have 2 of the fleet mechanics that will deal with the colony. So we have the ice melt, and obviously we have the de-icing, which is for the windshield, to keep our bus drivers and students safe. Currently, we're waiting on the spreaders. Just think of fertilizer, your husband fertilizing but we're prepared, and they're excited about it, and we hope to have a report to Mr. Kosh shortly. But we're ready.
Also, there's a group of early morning drivers that get there very early to start up all the buses.
4 a.m.
So-
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't add that. So we do have volunteers that come in at 4 a.m. They get excited, because drivers, they want to be paid for, their time. So what we've done is, it depends on who has that first route that goes out. And whoever has that first route that goes out, say it's 5:45, their bus is addressed first. It's started, it's here, and it's ready for them to go. So we're excited about that. And we had a lot of volunteers, believe it or not, once they realized they were going to be compensated for their time. Not volunteering, that's not a word we use.
So a short presentation, but there are some improvements there. And as we move into the spring semester, we'll be looking forward to hazardous routes that we're going to be reviewing and addressing as that comes up later in the spring. But with EverDriven, the special ed side of it, and then the hiring, I think we've got a good momentum going.
Any comments or questions? I have one, and it's actually more for Ms. Bay and Ms. Cobb. At the last presentation, we had asked about working on drivers coming, getting their certification with us, and then leaving, that we were having that issue. And you all said you were working on a solution for that. I'm wondering where we are. Fair enough, that's a good lawyer answer. Ms. Sells?
A couple of things, and I just wanted to commend the team for listening to those that are your employees, or that are our employees, our LISD family. People want to be heard, and even if a small percentage of those result in a savings or in efficiency or money for the district, it's win. And I think that we lose that ability to listen to those that are involved in other things in the world today, in the world in general. So I just wanted to commend you all for doing that. I also wanted to suggest maybe in that as we go through the new app, that those campuses with high percentage riders, that maybe you reach out to them and make your presence at one of their activities. A lot of our families and our parents at those campuses don't really pay attention to the emails and stuff, but if you're there in front of them, they will stop and listen and talk to you. And so I would suggest that. And then I was just curious, and we've been talking about this for a while, but those 68 inaccurate deliveries, how are they identified?
Did a cross-check of the routes and the delivery and drop-off addresses compared to their home addresses, and it flagged those. We have identified in this process a few that maybe had an alternate address 1 or 2 days a week, and because the majority of it, like the process is, there's always room for error. So we've identified like 3 or 4 that we're looking into, that the parent reached out and said, hey, I heard someone got this letter. This is my situation as well. Why didn't I get the communication? So really it wasn't, thank you. So in those scenarios, we're just working with those families, but it really was like a manual cross-check, Excel formulas, super nerdy, but I had fun.
Okay, perfect. And then Ever-Driven is still successful in being very responsive, and no issue with them not being able to fulfill requests we have or
No,
anything?
it's been pretty efficient. We've had a couple with sub-drivers or miscommunications and things like that, but I mean, nothing egregious at all. It's been moving along, and as I add more demand, we're pulling in more drivers, working through, getting the approval through HR, and like we said, we keep on increasing.
I still think, and Ms. Sells, I think this was one of your questions, but it came up last time. One of the biggest struggles with Ever-Driven, just as if we identify a good candidate for it and the family isn't willing to utilize it as a service, that has been a challenge still, I would say, to work through, because there's been more people we've identified we could put on Ever-Driven routes, but the families don't feel as confident about that, even though it's got a monitor and it's got tracking and all the things. So I think as more of our families find success with this service and it becomes more something more standard, that won't be a hurdle any longer. But we still do face that in this first year. I want to say thank you to the board, because I know we've heard concerns from our families that got special ed communication, and of course, we did our very best. I know you all know this. We sent really 3 waves of communication. We sent the early one of, we're taking a look at this. If anything has changed, please let us know. And then we sent the you've been identified communication as well. So maybe it was 2 rounds of communication. And we are giving all the way until February. I know Tina pointed that out in the slide. I just want to reiterate that we did not make it where you get this notification and it immediately changes. And so while these are very hard conversations to have, I do appreciate y'all's support in working to clean this situation up.
Dr. Taylor?
I think you mentioned how many families it affected. What was that number? Okay.
I will add to the Ever-Driven, they're very fast at saying, okay, we've got a car, we got a driver, and then our question is there a camera in there? And so we have made the decision, great, thank you for being ready to go, but until we have that camera installed, it does not transport LISD students.
I appreciate all the hard work. I look forward to not getting phone calls. Thank you all. Next up, the Chief of Staff report. Dr. Miller, the annual efficiency assessment update. Say that.
All right, well, we have a new annual report that we get to give now. So our efficiency report, so recall back, which I know you don't need this recall, but to call back, remember that our enrollment peaked several years ago, 53,000. We are now slowly declining, and forecast shows plateauing at around 43-ish, depending on which update we get. And so last year, before the closures of schools, we had over 60,000 seats available for students in our district. And so in March of '24, y'all passed the guidance and asked that we create a community efficiency committee, that we look at the efficiency of our buildings, how we use our facilities, and bring recommendations. So at that time is when the efficiency framework criteria was established. That is what the committee used to assess all buildings in the district, all school buildings. Those were the criteria that we used. So enrollment, we looked at what was the trend of enrollment over 5 years and what was the use of the facilities for the building capacity and efficiency. We looked at what special programs were there, how are they using the building, and to what percent of capacity were we at, what was compared to the optimal capacity. Then we used the facility assessment document to assess each school building, the actual building. For the cost, we looked at operational cost and how close each facility was to running at the optimal cost. That was things like insurance, utilities, that kind of stuff. And then for staffing, we ran what was the average ideal staffing at each level, elementary, middle, and high, and then we compared that to each building and where they were running. So those are the criteria that we used. That framework was established, and then based off of that, remember the results from when we first used it, y'all remember? We had 5, the responses to that were 5 closures, retiring of schools. We review the facilities usage across the district and looking for trends. We're always looking at our enrollment trends and how they affect our schools. We're looking at alternative ways of how to use the existing space that we have in our buildings so we can make sure we're efficient with what we're doing. Special programs, student programs, and district programs, how are we using our available space, and then consolidating where we can to be efficient. So we ran that framework again. We just did that in December based on this year's numbers where we're at right now. And so those have been updated. If you remember that there are 4 key indicators that we really use, that each building gets a score, an efficiency score based on those 4. So it's how many out of 4 do they have. That's looking at optimal capacity, your 5-year trend as we're trending out, what the forecast looks like, where they are as far as staffing is, and then the operational costs for all the things that don't account for the people in them. So the efficiency assessment has been updated, and it will be posted on our website later this week along with all the data that was reviewed and looked at. But if you'll recall, remember that the key efficiency score is at the top with those 4 indicators, and then below that are, of course, all the indicators and criteria that we look at, because there's a whole story behind it, but those are the 4 indicators that kind of get that score. So a few things that I just wanted to highlight of what we saw this year whenever we did the assessment compared to when the committee did the assessment was optimal capacity of the campuses fluctuated not only by enrollment. Of course, we know some campuses have slowly declining enrollment, others are holding steady, but also how the building space is used for special programs. So if you think even like speech, one year you might need 2 classrooms for speech, the next year you might need 1 classroom for speech. Well, then that opens up another classroom. So optimal capacity, the real capacity stays the same, but your optimal capacity could change based on how you're using the building and enrollment of students. So that was something to look at. Interesting, the operational cost, we saw an increase in utility costs, which that would not be surprising. Slightly lower costs in our property insurance when we average it all together. and then as we right-size our staffing, our administrative costs and our direct student support costs also declined. And whenever we compared operational costs. And then, we'll continue to look at alternative ways for how we use our existing space in our buildings. So from that, we'll be posting all of this stuff on our website coming up after tonight so that it's available for everyone.
And so, Board, you had all of that, of course, in Board Book with all the scores. We're really modeling this approach of updating this data. We don't have to reconvene the committee to update the data now that the assessment's been built. It's simply a matter of running the data that we have through the established framework. So I appreciate the work led by Dr. Miller to do that. But we do always want to, just like we do with the facilities assessment, basically that framework's established, and Mr. Hughes comes before you all every fall to report briefly on how did we get here, where did this come from, and then we always post the updated facility assessment to the website, same cadence here. So all of that updated data will be posted to the website as well. And of course, we've already made the proposals about how to use existing space in schools that have lower efficiency scores.
Comments or questions? Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to reiterate my gratitude for the updating of this data and being able to see over time. Retirement of schools was the hardest decision to make. And we don't want to have to make it again, right? And so that's part of what this ongoing process allows us to do, to be able to say, instead of retiring this middle school, can we put a program there that allows us to utilize that space effectively and then shift some other things around so that we don't have to go down that road again in the near future? And so I want to reiterate what you just said, Dr. Rapp, is that this allows us to see where we can move those particular programs. Where is there space? Where is there the ability to massage staffing? All of that, that's what good data does. It allows you to make good decisions. Not always easy decisions, but good decisions. So again, appreciate the data, appreciate the work of using the data to then determine what our next steps are in terms of housing programs.
Well, and we are well poised, albeit the hardest process any of us have ever been through. We are well poised with the law that was passed out of the last legislative session, where I anticipate we'll be having to provide much of this data through whatever platform TEA creates, as we know that there will be statewide analysis of facility capacity usage in schools. And of course, we're already having to submit bond data as well. And so we're well poised with the data that we have gathered. And I feel like we will come out looking very efficient right off the bat. And we're not also then moving forward with any future bond projects, or because we're right-sizing our facilities, any future bond programs we need to request money for, we will have already downsized facilities that might have needed bond projects.
And that, again, that's just what we do in Lewisville ISD. Not hear me? Okay. But that just goes to show you, I mean, similarly, before this efficiency ever happened, before we convened the committee, the district was already in the process of right-sizing at the campus level, at the district level. This is a long process that's been happening regardless. So once again, Lewisville ISD is ahead of the curve, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
I just want to say that your work on this committee is legacy, because I think the work that you did was so good, and it was so well, it was thoughtful and it was intentional. And I think that it shows that you can use your same criteria and everything else, and it works year after year. And it's something we can look at 3 or 4 and 5 years down the road. And I think that's a credit to you and your talent, and we're very lucky to have you. So thank you. Next, time for the finance report. Mr. Rare, who is probably just going to send Randy. Mr. Feit, welcome.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So tonight we have a couple of GMPs for our 2023 bond projects. Again, these are INS-funded projects through our 2023 bond. The very first one here is the Coyote Ridge Elementary School 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project. This one, VOK is the architect, Joris is the CMAR. Joris advertised and bid out the project to subcontractors per Chapter 2269 of the Government Code. Joris evaluated and scoped the bids and provided us with a guarantee maximum price. The guarantee maximum price is $18,820,426. That GMP is within our overall project budget. Our recommendation to approve this GMP will be presented to the board next Monday night. And work for this renovation is set to take place summer 2026 and summer 2027. Got a few images here of that the architect put together of kind of what the finished product will look like there. So as we kind of go through library. My mic go out? There you go. Front office there. Our second one, very similar school, Hicks Elementary School, 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair. Basically the same floor plan on these two. Again, VOK is the architect, Joris again is the CMAR, same process here. Everything was bid out to subcontractors and they have provided us with the GMP of $20,244,159. That GMP is within the overall project budget on this one. Recommendation to approve this GMP will be presented again next Monday night. And work for this renovation, again, is set to begin in summer 2026 and 2027. Do want to give a quick shout out to, our VOK, the architect, Solis O'Brien, the mechanical MEP engineer, for their creative solutions, and Joris and our, obviously working together with my staff. It takes a lot of work to get these things in budget these days. So there's a lot of work that went into these, and it really is a testament to the CMAR delivery method that they're part of the team working with us on solutions as we go along. I'm not going to promise that all the GMPs I'm going to be bringing forward are in budget. I'm trying to get us there, but very proud that these came in budget tonight. So here's some more images of Hicks Elementary. Go through the hallway there. The image from the gymnasium looking into the cafeteria through the dividers there, and then the library here. All right, so for our next steps on the 2023 bond, again, next Monday night, you'll see these two GMPs here for approval. As we roll into February, we're hoping to bring the LHS Kilo 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair, along with the Rockbrook and Vickery elementary life cycle maintenance and repair. We're working on those right now. As we roll into the February regular meeting for our consent items, those three GMPs we hope to present as well as our final completions of the Year 1 fire alarm project and the Morningside fire alarm project. So if you remember, the Morningside kind of was an off cycle. That vendor that helped us with that did a great job and got that work done very quickly. So we're really happy with that. With that, I'll answer any questions you have on the 2023 bond.
Any comments or questions? Only that I'm so old, I remember Hicks being built,
Right.
and I'm still around, and I'm around for the life cycle replacement.
I was there as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, none of the refreshes has affected me as much as these because both of these campuses shared students with Castle Hills. And they were both opened that second year that I had a student in LISD. Actually, Hicks was a year actually later.
Yeah, we drove all the way there.
Yes, and y'all drove all the way to Castle Hills. And so those students, let me tell you, came back together in middle schools and then again in high schools and never missed a beat. And many have become very successful. And so kudos to just those whole staffs back then. But wow, I'm feeling old.
Okay, so we will roll into our 2024 bond. Okay, 2024 bond, again, INS funds. This is not M&O money. This is money that the voters approved, and we're very happy that they did that. Our very first project here is the Hebron High School 2003 Field House 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project. Very long title, very specific. This is the original field house from Hebron High School. On this one, Stantec is the architect. Again, Joris is the CMAR. They again advertised and bid out this project to subcontractors per Chapter 2269 of the Government Code. They have provided us with a GMP of $8,868,435. That GMP as well is within our overall project budget. Recommendation to approve this GMP, again, will be presented next Monday night. And work for this renovation is set to begin just as soon as it's approved, basically. So we're ready to roll on this one. I've shown some images of this one before, but I thought it'd be a great time to kind of bring it back and kind of remember what we're going to see at the end there. Brand new entrance to the stadium, and obviously a lot of work happening inside that old field house. So our next project here is an actual CSP project. This is the practice field and middle school game field turf replacement project. So the scope here is one practice field at each of the 5 high schools will be converted from grass to synthetic turf, as well as our 3 middle school game fields at Shadow Ridge, Harmon, and Griffin. So this project was bid out as a CSP, as I mentioned, again, per Chapter 2269 of the Government Code. We received 6 bids for this project. We evaluated and have made a recommendation to award. There will be more information in board book this week for that. That recommendation is best value, which evaluates price, quality, availability, delivery timing, support, and the ability to perform work at all 8 locations. This is a very massive project, and so we had to really think through the companies and the bids and the ability of those companies to perform this work. Our next one here is another CSP. This is the CSP for the year 1 track replacements. So this project here, the scope is track replacement at Shadow Ridge and Harmon. Originally, Downing was a part of this, but we had put that project on hold, and it will be done at the same time with the 20-year life cycle. So again, this project was bid out as a CSP. We received 3 bids on this one. Again, we evaluated and have made a recommendation to award. There will be more information in board book for that. Again, recommendation on this one is best value, which evaluates price, quality, availability, delivery timing, support, and warranty durations. So you'll see durations there. Our next steps for 2024 bond are these 3 projects, coming back next Monday night, as I mentioned. As we roll into February, we're hoping to bring the Marcus High School Baseball Locker Room Edition and the Flower Mound High School Baseball and Softball Locker Room Edition GMPs. We roll into the regular meeting in February. We hope to have both of those GMPs again as consent items, as well as the final completion for the tennis court resurfacing project, and we're also planning on bringing the school board closeout, which I've mentioned a couple of times. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have on 2024 bond.
Are there any comments or questions? Jess, I'm so excited about the Hebron Fieldhouse. I won't lie, I've been looking forward to that for quite some time, so
There as well.
I'm very excited. Thank you. And I know that someone is very excited about the track, so
Right.
thank you so much.
All right, thank you all.
And now, it's time for Mr. Rare.
Thank you. Good evening. All right, so tonight we'll be looking at the consent agenda cooperative purchases preview that will be for the January 12th board meeting. The last 3 items on the preview will be purchases that will be made from vendors that are on cooperatives for items such as products and services that will be used by our facilities department, also online purchases from vendors for a wide range of supply products that will be used in classrooms, and then also additional printing options for products such as business cards and labels and workbooks. And so for those 3 items, the estimated expenditures will all fall in line with what we paid last year. In addition, those will all be coming out of approved campus and/or department budgets. And so Those are the last three items, and then the first item that's on there is actually, it's not an amount that we would be paying, but it's revenue that we could receive back for the district, and it's for using a vendor that's on a cooperative to recycle old technology assets. And so there, we're estimating that we could receive upwards to about $36,000 a year.
Love that.
And those items will all be brought as one consent agenda item on January 12th for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Rare. Happy New Year. Mr. Garricani, Technology Report.
Yes, good evening, Board. Tonight I have a few items from our 2023 bond program for technology. Apologize, I don't have, let's see. There we go. We have the second sale, so we're starting phase 2 of the classroom AV refresh project. We already brought the engineering services approval to you in December. You will see in the consent agenda for January the construction delivery method. And of course, step 3 will be to bring the final purchase to you at a future board meeting. The next item is the second sale engineering for stadium press box sound refresh. So we're refreshing the sound systems at the stadiums. Step 1 is now, which is the engineering services. This will appear in the January consent agenda, and then step 2 will be future board meetings, and step 3 will bring you the final approval. And then we have cybersecurity upgrades, specifically our web content filter. I do want to make note of this one. We're looking to do just a 6-month renewal. This renewal falls in March, which I think is odd, so this is a chance to kind of fix that, because if we ever wanted to move to a different vendor, then this disruption would occur during the school year, and we don't want to have that. So we're looking to do a 6-month renewal, which will push that change into the summer. Because it is a 6-month renewal, we don't expect it to go over purchasing threshold for it to need to come to you for approval, but if it does, it will come to you for approval. Next steps, as I mentioned, we've got the construction delivery method coming to you in consent. These are January consent agenda items, and then engineering for the stadium press box. Then in February, construction delivery method for stadium press box sound system refresh. And not the second item, as I mentioned, because we're looking to renew only for 6 months on the web content filtering, but then the construction delivery method for stadium press box in February consent agenda. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Sells?
I just want to make sure that, because it's not stated on here, that the vendor has approved the 6-month renewal, or are we awaiting?
They did.
Okay.
They agreed to provide a quotation for just 6 months.
Okay, I just had the question just because it wasn't being brought to us until February, so. Okay.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Garricani.
Thank you all very much.
All right, next up is the Board of Trustees reports, where chairs of our board committees give updates. Ms. Lasan, you have the floor.
All right, so I am the chair of the naming committee along with Doctors Barker and Taylor. I don't know what I wanted to call you. Anyway, I don't know what I was trying to call you. Anyway, so the first, we met with Miss Bay back there right before we got out for break because we needed a little, well, I wanted us to have a little legal advice. But the first thing I wanted to bring up is that we got a request from Memorial Elementary to rename the private drive that's in front of their campus. Right now, she sent a picture over, the principal sent a picture over, and it just says LM School or whatever. So, so they had, asked the city of Lewisville about it, and so so we are recommending, they requested it to be named Maverick Way. It's just a private drive. And so the committee agrees, and so we have written up an agenda item that will be on the January 12th agenda next week. And as for those of you who don't know, the Maverick is their mascot. And so we're hoping to get that done. And they have been working with they had, kind of gone through the process of how to change a street name. And so they had already talked to the city of Lewisville, and as most cities do, they have a sign shop. They will make the sign and hang it, and we will have to get them, some, formal stuff for the agenda item for them to update their maps and such. Okay, then the next thing was, we've actually had 3 requests of different things within the district to name things. And so when I was looking through the policy about naming, I kind of felt like it was a little, to be honest, a little loosey-goosey, a little vague. And so as it so happens, Dr. Barker here is the head of the policy committee, and this is where Ms. Bay got involved, or we were asking her some questions. And so, and she will update you in a minute on that, but I have sent her an email with some specific things that I want the policy committee to look at. There's just some things that are very vague in the policy that, as I was reading through it, I had a hard time, saying, okay, does this fit? Does this not fit? So there's that. So I have informed the other staff members that we're just, gonna push a little pause. We still hope to get things done, for sure in the spring, but we need a little bit of time to kind of figure out some things. We know that we're gonna have probably 3 other future requests for naming, and the committee is most likely going to do some type of survey to get input from the public about those. Ms. Taylor, Dr. Taylor, is going to work with the Lewisville Parks Department to come up with naming suggestions for the new park at Hedrick Middle School, which I happened to drive by there, was that yesterday? Yesterday, and I saw some kids out there playing on that brand new little park out there, so we're going to work with them to figure out what we might want to name that. And then the final thing, Dr. Rapp and I had discussed nailing down a little bit more of a process to go through to request naming. Other districts have, you had already looked at, I think you sent me examples of about 4 different districts and how they do it, and there's a form and there's some specific, things that they request, and so that is something that the committee, also was in favor of, and so we're going to be going through that process. And again, it's not going to take long, but it's just something that we want to do to put in place to kind of move forward. So with that, I don't know if you're in charge of the meeting, but Dr. Barker will be talking about what the policy committee is going to do. So we'll just go around the table.
I love it. Yes, so I am the chair of the policy committee, and I serve with Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Sells on that committee, and Ms. Bay helps corral us and get us together. So we will be meeting tomorrow evening. And Deanne has provided some resources so that we can look through some other policies and make some adjustments based on the naming committee's recommendations. So I will share those with it was a nice bridge, so I can be able to take the suggestions from the naming committee over to the policy committee. And so we will be looking to bring very quickly a recommendation for updates to that policy.
Ms. Alcatab, do you have anything? Okay. So I have a couple of things. I am the chair of the appraisal district nomination. There was a member of the Denton County Appraisal District, Robert Altman, who resigned. And so that leaves a vacancy, which does not leave us a great deal of time to put a nominee in place. And the committee, through email, we decided that we're just going to use our votes. We're not going to do a nomination. We had nobody reach out if someone reached out to one of you, let us know, but no one reached out to anybody on our board saying that they were seeking a nomination from us. So we're going to wait and see who shows up, kind of a thing, who drops out of the woodwork to serve on the Denton Central Appraisal District Board. The other committee I'm a chair of is the chair of the Program and Budget Review Committee, and we will be meeting in February-ish, more than likely early February, maybe this month. Look for a doodle poll near you, and that would be Dr. Barker and Dr. Taylor on that committee. On DCAD, Ms. Lasan and Dr. Taylor and I serve on that committee. So with that, so we've got work coming up. We have a reorganization of our committees. I will send that out to everybody so that everybody has that. No chairs were changed for staff, so you don't have to find a new person. But we did do some reorganization so that we could bring Ms. Lopez into the fold of board committee work. So with that, Dr. Barker.
I also want to discuss the BOP committee, so sorry.
Oh, you are so correct. So with that, I am giving a charge to the BOP committee, which will now consist of Ms. Lopez, Dr. Barker, and Dr. Taylor, to do some amendments and to put a calendar together for the BOP. I think it would also behoove us with what the naming committee is doing to incorporate that into the BOP so that we have what I like to call a one-stop shop for everything. That is not going to be quick committee work. That's going to be some time and thoughtfulness in that, and it will require some cooperation from all chairs and committee members to give that committee information so that they can bring it forward, and we can do a formal amendment, and then we can start those wheels turning. Thank you so much for reminding me about that.
Absolutely, and if I can just add to that, I am really appreciative of this idea. We made some adjustments to the BOP last summer where we added descriptions of each committee, and we started to scale out what a calendar might look like. So this will really give us a chance to be able to determine what the cadence of our committees really look like. As always, Lewisville ISD has a process for everything. We have a calendar for what's going to happen each month at our board meetings, and so this will allow our business as a board to mirror that. So with that, I will be calling the BOP committee together very soon for us to start that work, and as Ms. Prosnick mentioned, I'll be reaching out to all of the chairs to add to that calendar.
All right. Anybody got anything else? With that, happy New Year. I look forward to the second half of the district. And with that, since there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 8:33. Have a pleasant evening.